Welcome into the Commanders Report live show here on a beautiful Thursday evening. Thank you to all the real ones that are stopping by here. I know it's not our usual live day, but there were some circumstances yesterday that forced us to move our live show here to Thursday. So thank you guys for adjusting your schedules here during the week to talk some Commanders football with us here on a beautiful Thursday. Now, we got a bunch of great stuff coming your way, 3 great segments, but we have a producer here, and Joey is unavailable today to be our producer, but I thought I'd bring in a Cowboys fan here. Jeffrey Cooperstein is our producer today.
You guys messed up and let us get George Pickens.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. So what are your thoughts on the George Pickens trade, and do you think the Dallas Cowboys have a better offense than the Commanders right now?
I absolutely do. CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens is the best wide receiver duo in the NFL. It's better than Chase and Higgins, first of all.
Maybe from a talent perspective, but when Pickens gets arrested in 3 months, the trade you're going to give up a third-round pick for somebody that's going to go to jail.
They'll get a third-round pick back when he signs somewhere else in the offseason.
After he goes to jail, no one's going to want him.
Everyone's going to want him because he's going to go for 1,200 yards.
Come on. Help me out here, guys. Who has the better offense here? The Washington Commanders with Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz, Deebo Samuel.
40 years old.
So he's still good?
Curtis Samuel stinks.
He is Curtis Samuel's not here anymore. Deebo Samuel.
He washed too.
Nope, Deebo's awesome.
Really?
He's going to be awesome in this scheme.
Why did the 49ers get rid of him?
Because they didn't want him anymore.
Kyle Shanahan, the best play caller in the NFL, didn't want Deebo Samuel?
Correct. And Cliff Kingsbury is going to be awesome. So if you guys want to tell Coop who's boss right now, spam those WASs down there in the comments section. I want to say hi to all my friends in the chat. We got John Stroyeff. We've got Leandre Lee. Of course, we got my beautiful girlfriend, Cassie Voth, who's back. She is back from her little trip back home to Minnesota. We got Maya's World is here. Hello, Maya's. Good to see you. We got Peter in here. We got Jeff Barber. We got Richard Barker. I'm sorry, Coop. Everybody's spamming WAS.
I would hope so.
You're the only one that thinks Dallas's offense is better because guess what? You got Dak Prescott, the ultimate choker in the entire sport.
We're on a Commander stream, so I'd hope they all pick Washington.
Nope, they're just unbiased.
Oh, yeah, totally unbiased.
Unbiased, very objective football minds in the chat.
I can't wait until the Commanders go 8-9 again and Jaden has a
8-9 again. They were not 8-9 last year.
Jaden's gonna have a sophomore slump, and you guys will be humbled.
Nope, he's gonna win. He's gonna win league MVP this year, and
You want to bet on it?
Well, I mean, no.
Oh, okay.
So how about this?
Okay.
Jaden Daniels will finish ahead of Dak Prescott in MVP voting this year. I'll bet on that.
Ooh, that's enticing.
I will bet on that.
That's it.
Just let me know if you want to take that bet, Coop, because I have a lot of confidence in Jaden Daniels. So on today's show, we got the latest Commanders news and rumors. Jadeveon Clowney was released today by the Carolina Panthers. We'll talk about that. Plus, we got a Trey Hendrickson update from Ian Rapoport that it's not particularly great news if you're a Commanders fan, but we'll talk about it. Then we'll get into my list of 2025 trade candidates for the Washington Commanders, 5 players that I think could be traded by the Burgundy and Gold either this offseason or before the NFL trade deadline. Then we'll get into our live Commanders Report Q&A. So if you have a question and you want to get on the show, if you want to tell Coop how stupid his take is that the Cowboys have a better offense than the Washington Commanders, let him know down there in the comments section. Use hashtag Commanders. The top questions on today's show will get on the mailbag.
Here's the problem. I get to pick.
You do get the pick. That is true. But if it's a particularly good one, then you have to. Or how about this? You super chat, so Coop is forced to put your comment on the show.
Then I have no choice.
So if you want to tell Coop that the Cowboys suck and the F the Cowboys and all this different stuff and George Pickens stinks, then go ahead, super chat, and Coop has no choice but to put it on the show today.
You guys have one good season in the last 40, and you're talking crazy.
Still more NFC championships than you've been alive, buddy.
Is that true?
Have they been to the NFC championship game since you've been alive?
My mother's womb.
So not born yet.
Nope.
And the Commanders made it in year 1 of the Jaden Daniels era. Oh, my goodness. The Cowboys are a joke.
Commanders are missing the playoffs this season.
No, they are not. Yep. Oh, my gosh. You guys need to blast Coop in the chat right now. Type those me's in the chat if you haven't already for a shout out. I already gave a bunch of shout outs earlier. We got Orlando in the chat, Big Desi. We've got Eugene in here. We've got Peter. We've got JG. We've got, of course, we got Asia. We've got Keith. We've got Edgar. We got Sean. We've got Grim. We got Bill. Got Jasmine. Got Cochita. Of course, Myas. Koopy and what is it? Jackie and Koopy are back together again here on the Commander's Report. So we're going to get into our first segment here, guys. We're not going to make you wait any longer for more Commanders content here on the channel. Again, first up, the latest Commanders news and rumors, some updates and some rumors for you guys, especially at the edge rusher position. And then also we have a running back that's still a free agent that somebody suggested that the Commanders should go out and sign in free agency this year before the start of the 2025 season. Speaking of 2025, I got my trade candidates for the Washington Commanders, and then we'll get into our live mailbag. So again, get your questions down there in the live chat or super chat so Coop can't say no to your question. All right, so if you want to force your question on the show, make sure you send in a super chat of any dollar amount along with your question. We got our first super chat of the day that we'll get to after our first segment here, the latest news and rumors surrounding the Washington Commanders. Welcome into the Commanders Report. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today we got a bunch of Commanders news and rumors to cover on today's program. First, we got a new update from Ian Rapoport on a potential Trey Hendrickson trade. Then I'll also go over a new Commanders edge rusher target that was just released by his respective team this afternoon. And then we'll go over a potential running back free agency target as well that somebody is comparing to James Conner. All right, so before we get into all the content today, if you want a shout out on a future edition of the Commanders Report, everyone that puts a super thanks on today's show is going to get a shout out on a video that we do next week. All right, so if you don't know what a super thanks is, it's like a little bit of a tip that you give to me and you give to Joey and our entire team here at the Commanders Report. What you do is you click the icon below this video that looks like this. It's the heart with the money sign, and you donate any dollar amount. You can also put a message in there if you want. And next week on a video, we're going to put all the names of the people that send in a super thanks on today's video, and we will give them a shout out on that show. So if you want a shout out on the show, send in a little bit of a tip. We greatly appreciate all of your guys' support here on the channel. So we did get a little bit of a Trey Hendrickson update, and of course we've been waiting for a potential trade because Hendrickson would be an awesome addition to the Commanders defense. But Ian Rapoport went on the Pat McAfee Show today, and he says that the Bengals want to find a way to get an extension done with Hendrickson, and that it sounded like the feeling is mutual between Hendrickson and the team. This is what he had to say on McAfee earlier today. I think the Bengals and Hendrickson want to do a deal. I would never rule out a trade, but I think the Bengals want to keep him. The Bengals sometimes function differently, maybe a little bit slower than some organizations, but they do want to keep him and do a deal. So my read of the situation here, guys, is, if the Bengals are really looking to move him, they probably would have moved him before or during the NFL draft, all right? So it sounds to me, especially with this new report from Rapoport, that a trade for Trey Hendrickson is probably not going to happen, and if it does happen, it's going to be like a last-minute thing. It's going to be like, oh my gosh, we're getting close to the season and we're still far apart in negotiations. We have to trade him, sort of deal. All right. So, with that in mind, who are some of the other top edge options that are out there for the Washington Commanders? That should be the question on everybody's mind, because I do think that this team could definitely still use an edge rusher, especially as a designated pass rusher to replace Dante Fowler Jr., who left this team to go back to the Cowboys and had 10.5 sacks for this team just last year. But today, Jadeveon Clowney, somebody that's been a very productive player in the National Football League for many seasons now, was just released by the Carolina Panthers, making him an unrestricted free agent. And for me personally, guys, I would be down to sign Jadeveon Clowney. Okay, he is somebody that is a very good stunt technician. He's very powerful, and he's got great explosiveness to his frame. And if you know anything about Dan Quinn, if you know anything about Joe Witt Jr., the way they like to generate pressures is to do a lot of stunts and gains and twists and loops and all these different games that they play at the line of scrimmage to get people open and to really force an offensive line to really pick up these stunts and, play really intelligent football. And, Clowney's the type of athlete that has really thrived in this style of defense before. He did that back in 2023 when he played with the Baltimore Ravens. Last year, he spent the season with the Carolina Panthers, had 5.5 sacks and 9 TFLs. But that 2023 season was a really good one. He was their number one edge rusher there in Baltimore in a year where they were the number one overall seed in the AFC, and was one of their key defensive pieces. He had 9 TFLs and 9.5 sacks. It's very similar to the number that Dante Fowler Jr. had in this defense just last year, and also forced 2 fumbles. So I still think that this is somebody that can get the job done, especially as a designated pass rusher type, kind of in that Dante Fowler type of role in this defense. Now, you don't have to get Jadeveon Clowney. There's still plenty of other options out there on the free agency market. Zadarius Smith also had some pretty decent production last year with the Detroit Lions, specifically towards the end of the year. Von Miller, who had 6 sacks last year and can still be a very valuable designated pass rusher, is still out there. Matthew Judon is somebody that I think would really fit the defensive kind of scheme that Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. want to play here. Preston Smith and Carl Lawson, I think, are probably a step down from the rest of the guys we've talked about today, but those guys are certainly former starters that have had productive seasons in the National Football League. And then if you really want to still trade for an edge rusher, I think 3 options on the market right now are Odafe Oweh from the Baltimore Ravens, especially if the Ravens bring back Jadeveon Clowney, which is very possible. I could see them unloading Oweh, who just had 9.5 sacks just last year. So he's somebody that I think could be a really good fit here. Tyree Wilson, former high draft pick, very powerful player. There's been some rumors that the Raiders might be willing to let him go for the right price. And then A.J. Epinesa, they bring in Joey Bosa this offseason. Of course, they still have Greg Rousseau there in Buffalo. So Epinesa is somebody that I think fits kind of the mold of the defensive end type that Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. like to have here in Washington. And for the right price, they might be willing to make a deal. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comments section. Which edge rusher would you like the Commanders to bring in this offseason? Do you want to wait for a trade to surface with Trey Hendrickson? Do you want to go get Jadeveon Clowney? Do you want Von Miller? Who do you want? Let me know down there in the comments section for today's pinned question. YouTube's going to throw an ad break here in just a couple of seconds, and when that happens, take advantage of that time. But let me know which edge rusher you'd like to add to this room. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Fanatics, where you can go to chatsports.com/Daniels to pick up your brand new Jaden Daniels Commanders jersey today. It also helps out the channel financially because if you go to chatsports.com/Daniels, I'll put that link in the comments and description of today's show, and you make a purchase, Fanatics sends us part of the proceeds here at the Commanders Report. So if you want to help us out and help yourself out here a little bit and get a jersey that I think you're going to be able to wear for the rest of your life, you can go to chatsports.com/Daniels and get your new jersey today. So now moving on here to the running back position, FanSided's James Dudko suggests that the Washington Commanders should sign veteran running back, who just turned 30, by the way, Gus Edwards. All right, and according to James, he thinks that Edwards is a James Conner level player. In fact, his exact quote was, "He is a James Conner clone." Now, in my opinion, Conner is one of the top 10 running backs in all of football. So this is very, very high praise from Dudko. Let's see his reasoning for this potential move. There's still a free agent who could play the James Conner role for the Commanders play caller, talking about Cliff Kingsbury there. Conner became an unlikely and invaluable niche player when Kingsbury signed him for the Arizona Cardinals back in 2021. There are similarities between his arrival in the desert and what veteran Gus Edwards would bring to Washington. What the Cardinals were missing was power between the tackles and somebody to punch it in at the goal line. Conner ticked both those boxes by pounding his way for 752 rushing yards and a career-high 15 touchdowns in 2021. He also did most of the work, 69 carries in the opponent's half of the field. Conner proved automatic by scoring all 15 of his rushing touchdowns from inside the 20-yard line. Delivering a thump is the core part of Edwards' game. He couldn't do it often enough for the Chargers because of an ankle sprain that sent him to the injured reserve, but the 30-year-old is the kind of tough veteran the Commanders are building their roster around. Now listen, man, I think that whenever you throw the name James Conner out there, he's one of the best running backs in the entire league, okay? So you have to really live up to that, and I'm not sure Gus Edwards is exactly that good of a running back where, like, he's a top 10 level guy in the league, but I do see James's point here because he is a very powerful guy. He is somebody that can run in between the tackles, and he's somebody that can get yardage after contact, all right? And right now, you look at this room with Brian Robinson Jr., I mean, right now, B-Rob is kind of like your power back, and even though he's got some good size, I don't know if I'd necessarily characterize him as a thumper the way that I would characterize Gus as a thumper. Then you got guys like Austin Eckler, Chris Rodriguez Jr., Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I mean, I wouldn't characterize any of these guys, Jeremy McNichols, as power guys. So if they really wanted to get that quote-unquote James Conner role going in Cliff Kingsbury's offense this year, and you want somebody to operate within the structure of the, short yardage, red zone, get you some touchdowns kind of deal, I honestly think B-Rob is kind of the guy that they envisioned for that role. But if they wanted to add a guy to play that role, I wouldn't mind adding Gus Edwards whatsoever. I wouldn't be mad at that whatsoever. He's a good player. And as long as he can stay healthy, I think that he can be a good addition for the Washington Commanders. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section. Would you sign Gus Edwards for a team-friendly deal to become this team's new power back? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comments section. For me, for the right price, especially if it's like vet minimum, which it could be at this point, sign me up every single day of the week. That'll be it for today's edition of the Commanders Report by Chat Sports. You guys are the absolute best. Thank you guys for making it to the end of today's show and supporting our channel here. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we got in-depth, informative, free Commanders content on this channel every single day. So if you don't want to miss any of it this offseason, heading into the 2025 regular season, click that subscribe button right now. And until next time, guys, go raise some hail. First segment in the books here, Mr. Coop. And
I will say, like you said, Gus Edwards isn't quite James Conner, but I could see the fit.
Yeah, I mean, in that specific type of role of the power back, like I don't think that you can, it's necessarily a bad idea to bring in somebody like that. Somebody with a lot of experience. This is a team that's really bringing in a lot of veteran players, kind of fits kind of the culture here in Washington. So if you can get him for a team-friendly deal, why not?
What about a Nick Chubb?
I wouldn't mind Nick Chubb either. Honestly, if you're looking for somebody that could have like a James Conner impact, it might be Nick Chubb. Just because he might bounce back from that knee injury that he had this year. So maybe he could be a possibility, but maybe he's more expensive and they don't want to get somebody that's more expensive. But hey, at this point in the offseason, who knows? He might become really cheap as well. Noah Lowry says Pickens goes to jail over under 2.5 months.
I'll take the over, but not by much.
Listen, man, all I'm going to say, Coop, is, and I know you're loving this trade, you look at the history of Pittsburgh Steelers wide receivers that they trade away.
Oh, yeah.
And the numbers that they have, dog shit.
Antonio Brown won a Super Bowl.
Well, he was the number 3 receiver on the wide. No.
Juju.
Look at his numbers. His numbers were never the same.
What's the other? Martavis?
Juju's numbers have never been the same.
Martavis won a Super Bowl. All three of them.
As a backup.
All three of them.
As a backup. They weren't the same players. You're talking about it like, oh, they had all this success individually. No, they went to teams that won Super Bowls. It doesn't mean they were the reasons why or that they were big contributors to them winning the Super Bowl.
The math tells me he's winning
the math tells you that the numbers went down significantly.
But the math tells me he's winning a Super Bowl.
So?
So?
That doesn't matter.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah, because the Cowboys really know all this stuff about winning Super Bowls,
They have 5 compared to the Commanders' 3.
Yeah, the Commanders have done it with multiple quarterbacks.
So have the Cowboys.
2 quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
They've done it with 3. So we're better. By the way, Joe Gibbs is the only head coach in NFL history to win a Super Bowl with 3 different starting quarterbacks.
This is true.
So Joe Gibbs better than Tom Landry. It's official.
Now he's a NASCAR team owner.
Yes, he is. He likes those cars. He likes the vibration of the cars. The real ones know.
Oh,
Name the movie down there in the comment section if you know it. But yeah, the Commanders are better than the Cowboys, and we all know it. But if you guys want to get your question in on the show, hashtag Commanders or Super Chat to get on today's Q&A. I don't know how we're doing on questions right now.
We need some questions.
We still need more questions? All right, so if you got any questions about this Commanders draft class, about the free agency targets that they have, the trade rumors, Trey Hendrickson, if you got any questions at all, let us know. Hashtag Commanders down there in the live chat. We appreciate all the people that are in the chat. We got 228 people watching live right now. This is an excellent audience. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Commanders Report by Chat Sports. If you haven't clicked that subscribe button yet, consider subscribing. We're live usually on Wednesdays. It's usually a different producer as well, not a Cowboys fan, but we do appreciate Coop stepping in the chair here on a Thursday. But without further ado, let's get into our next segment here, which is a list of 5 Commanders players that I think this team could trade away before the start or before the NFL trade deadline hits here in 2025. So without further ado, let's get into it. My list of trade candidates for the 2025 season for your Washington Commanders are coming at you right now. Welcome into the Commanders Report. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today, we've got 5 Commanders players that I could see get traded by this football team either before the season begins here in 2025 or during the NFL season before the NFL trade deadline hits. These are players that maybe have expiring contracts. Maybe if the Commanders aren't necessarily playing all that well this season and there's like a sophomore slump for Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels, maybe they would consider letting some of these guys go. But before we get into the content today, predict it for me down there in the comments section. Will the Commanders make another trade before the season begins? Trey Hendrickson, Odafe Oweh. Could they go get somebody else? Let me know down there in the comments section. Yes or no, will the Commanders make another trade before the season begins? Now, before we get into my list today of 5 players on the Commanders roster that I think could be traded, I'm not necessarily predicting that these guys all get traded, all right? So don't come at me in the comments section at the trade deadline and say, Sperry predicted all these guys were going to get traded. No, I'm just saying that there is a scenario where I could see these guys get traded if the stars align. So with that in mind, let's get into my first name here, which is Dorrance Armstrong. All right, now you might be saying at home, Jack, Dorrance Armstrong right now is arguably our best edge rusher on the team. What the hell? Well, I mean, if you're going to go get a guy like Trey Hendrickson in a trade, and if that situation completely devolves in Cincinnati, they might want somebody that's a starting caliber player to replace Hendrickson's role in that defense, so that at least they have another starter on the other side of Shamar Stewart this year in Cincinnati. And, if you can trade for a number 1 edge, I think Armstrong may be included in the deal, all right? And I think that would be more than fair for the Washington Commanders because you're pretty much replacing his number 1 role and every down role on this defensive line with a guy like Trey Hendrickson. And this is a deal that I think I could see happening where, you swap picks in 2026. You give the Bengals your first-round pick next year. You get the Bengals' second-round pick next year, okay? Then you give a fourth-round pick to the Bengals in 2027 and Dorrance Armstrong, all right? So this way, the Bengals get an upgrade in the pick next year and an additional mid-round pick in 2027, plus they get a starting caliber player, and then the Commanders get their number 1 edge rusher, and they don't have to necessarily give up yet another draft pick here, and you still have 2 picks on day 2 of the draft next year. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Would you include Dorrance Armstrong in a trade of this kind of caliber if it means you get a guy like Trey Hendrickson? Give me an A for accept or D for decline. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section for today's pinned question. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. And also we'll tell you about our friends at Prize Picks today. When I'm talking about Prize Picks, let me know if you would accept or decline this trade down there in the comments section. And with that, let's have a word from our friends here at Prize Picks, which is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into stone cold cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all, and you can download it on your phone right now for free. All you have to do is pick more than or less than on at least 2 player stat projections for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, and Prize Picks, with Prize Picks, you can also turn your playoff hot takes into tickets to basketball's championship series. Every lineup you make on Prize Picks will enter you in the Takes Two ticket sweepstakes, which could get you and a +1 a VIP trip to the championship. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that could lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, where every Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts like player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. You guys can see here for playoff basketball series, you guys can even put more than or less than on full series averages. So here we got the more for Jaylin Brunson points per game average. He's certainly on the way to do that for the New York Knicks as we speak. Going to take the more for Kristaps Porzingis as well for the points per game average, and we'll take the less on Mikal Bridges' points per game average here for the New York Knickerbockers. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Another guy I could see potentially getting dealt if they want to upgrade at this position is Brian Robinson Jr. Now, I will say I think that a B-Rob trade is relatively unlikely. I do think they probably keep him around for at least this season and then let him hit the open market. But the way that I think B-Rob would get traded is if both Austin Eckler and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt are playing well, or another running back that they bring in, and then Washington wants to trade B-Rob and get something for him in terms of a draft pick before he ends up walking for nothing in free agency. All right, so that's kind of the conditions for a B-Rob trade. But as I just said, guys, I kind of feel like this one might be the least likely on my list today, and I do think they'll probably just keep him for one more year because he's a pretty well-rounded back. He's nothing special. But he is one of my favorite players on the team because of the B-Rob chant we get to do every time he scores a touchdown on our watch parties. But I do think this is probably his last year in the nation's capital. Then somebody that I think actually has a pretty decent chance. If somebody wants Noah Igbenogany, I think they can have him today for a 7th-round pick. All right, I think that the Commanders are ready to move off of him because last year he just didn't have a very good season. I mean, listen, I love Igbenogany's effort and the stuff that he brings to the table in that way, but he had a 45.3 PFF grade last year, guys. That's 115th out of 116 eligible corners in the National Football League last year. That's just not good enough, all right? Now, he does bring some savvy and some toughness, so maybe if a team really wants to get him as their starting slot corner and they think that he's awesome, sure, we'll give him to you for a 7th-round pick. But right now, I kind of like the slot situation here in Washington. You got Mike Sainristil, who you drafted to be a slot corner out of Michigan. I think he's going to be an impact-level player for this defense this year. Then you got Jonathan Jones, who's a really, really good depth piece to have here that's slot capable. And then if push comes to shove, UDFA Robert McDaniel from Jackson State played in the slot for that football team, and he's awesome in the slot, man. So I really like the situation that the Washington Commanders have in the slot right now. I just don't know where Igbenogany kind of slots in. So I think that the Commanders would love to trade him before the season if they could. Then our final two guys are offensive linemen on today's show, actually. We'll start with Andrew Wiley, who has been this team's starting right tackle the last 2 seasons and has underwhelmed, let's say. He's been okay, I guess. He's been fine, and he definitely has a lot of starting experience. But it's clear that the Commanders are ready to move on. Now, because of Sam Cosmi's injury, Wiley's probably going to be the starting right guard for the team to start this season. So this is not one where I expect him to be traded before the season begins. This is more of a deadline deal because Sam Cosmi could be back by the deadline. And then if an offensive lineman kind of needy team at the deadline wants a player that has a lot of starting experience to kind of supplement their O-line because let's say they have an injury that can play, and Wiley can play guard, he can play tackle, he's got some versatility in that regard. If a team comes calling and they're like, we'll give you a 6th-round pick for your backup, offensive lineman here, I think that's something the Commanders would certainly consider. Then we'll finish up here with Nate Herbig, another guy with a lot of starting experience in the National Football League. He's known as kind of a good character and culture guy, which is part of the reason why the Commanders got him. He's an excellent backup, and he's fantastic depth along this offensive line, can play center and then both guard spots. But again, if there's a team that needs an interior offensive lineman to come in and like on a 1-year rental type of situation, be their starting player because one of their starters go down with injury. I mean, you take a look at his career PFF grades when he has been a starter. He was the 13th highest graded guard in football when he played for the Eagles back in 2020. Had another pretty darn good season there with the Eagles in 2021. And then with the Jets, he fell down a little bit in terms of the grading from PFF, which isn't gospel, by the way. But Herbig's a decent player. He's somebody that in a pinch you can turn to as a starter. So with all the depth that the Commanders have on the offensive line, if there's a team that's willing to give up a decent draft pick for either like Andrew Wiley or Nate Herbig at the deadline, I could certainly see this team pull that trigger to get more draft capital in the future. So that is our completed list here, guys. Dorrance Armstrong, but only if it's for like a number one edge rusher type of kind of trade. Brian Robinson Jr., Noah Igbenogany, Andrew Wiley, and Nate Herbig are the 5 players I could see the Washington Commanders trade at some point this year. And if you made it to the end of today's show, type those real ones down there in the comments section. You guys are the absolute best making it to the end of the show, and I want to give some love to you down there in the comments if you made it to the end. So really do appreciate you guys. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already. I'll see you guys next time, and until then, go raise some hail. All right, 2 segments down, 1 to go here, Coop, and it is the mailbag. So if you guys want to get your questions in there, do we still need, I'm guessing we still need more questions?
Excuse me, good Lord. We could use a few more.
All right, so let's put a 3-minute shot clock on for them to get their questions in. So we're gonna have 3 minutes here, guys. And if you guys want to get your question on the show for free today, all you have to do is use hashtag Commanders down there in the chat, and we'll get into the questions today. So 3 minutes to get your questions in. We would like to get around 5 or 6 more questions so that we have a good collection of questions to choose from today. So
that would be wonderful.
So if we can get 5 or 6 more questions in the chat, that would be delightful. We got 242 people watching live here, guys. So if you guys have a question, don't be shy. Put it in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. If you want to talk about Jaden Daniels heading into his second year. While we are waiting for the clock to run out here, and while you guys get your questions in, as I point my root beer bottle at you guys, Coop, you said something very controversial on this show the last time you were on this show.
Did I?
You did.
I don't remember that.
So it was during, I can't remember if it was one of the playoff live streams where you came in on like a cameo appearance and you said you think Dak Prescott is a better rusher of the football than Jaden Daniels. Would you care to elaborate on that point?
Nope.
Because you're wrong?
Because he is.
No, he's not. It's unbelievable that you would say that.
Just like George Pickens is a better receiver than any receiver on the Commanders roster.
Well, that's just statistically not true. Let's see. Let's take a look at some numbers from Terry McLaurin, and let's see if George Pickens has ever gotten as many yards or touchdowns in a season as Terry McLaurin.
Look at who was throwing George Pickens the football.
Look who was throwing the ball to Terry McLaurin. All right, let's just take out last year because besides last year, he had 0 good quarterbacks. All right, his highest touchdown
Sam
mark.
Howell wasn't a good quarterback?
No, he wasn't.
Who else did they have playing quarterback?
Carson Wentz, Taylor Heineke, Alex Smith.
Taylor Heineke took him to the playoffs.
No, he didn't. He was a backup that played in a playoff game.
Took him to the playoffs. Alex Smith.
This is unbelievable. So okay. The highest that he got with those quarterbacks that we talked about was 1,191 yards. Okay, so that's almost 1,200 yards. George Pickens, I don't think he's ever gotten to 1,000.
He got to 1,140 in 2023, buddy.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
And
with Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett.
Terry McLaurin's still better.
First of all, he's not, but you can argue it.
Well, okay, we have to take into account here off the field stuff too.
Number 2, Pickens is the wide receiver too, whereas McLaurin is your best receiver.
That is true, but Jaden Daniels is the great equalizer
So
here.
would you say that the Cowboys receiver room is better than the Commanders?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
But the Commanders' offense is better because they have the better quarterback by a mile.
I don't think it is.
I think it is. It's not even close to me, man. All right, did we get enough questions here? I see some more questions in there.
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right, Coop says we're good, so without further ado, he can be wrong about a lot of different things, but
never wrong.
I literally can't believe he thinks that Dak Prescott's a better rusher of the football than Jaden Daniels.
I'm taking Dak.
He's taking Dak. Yep. All right. We can get into the mailbag here, guys. Appreciate all the questions. And by the way, while we're still in the mailbag, you can still get your questions in. Coop is going to be filing through the questions here and going through the best ones. So, Fanatics, yeah. So let's get into it right now. The mailbag segment is coming at you right now. Welcome into the Commanders Report mailbag for this week. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. This is my favorite segment I get to do every single week, guys, because I get to talk Commanders football, and I get to talk about the topics that you have questions about and you guys want answers to. So I love having this kind of two-way conversation with you guys, and I really try to make it a priority to make sure we get to one mailbag a week so you guys can have a voice here on the Commanders Report. And if you guys want to get a question on a future Commanders Report mailbag, you guys can use hashtag Commanders down there in the comments section, along with your question, of course, or you can subscribe and join us every Wednesday for our Commanders Report live shows. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support on those. And without further ado, let's get into the questions here, starting with Jasmine saying, I have a question for you, Jack. How are you going to trade for Trey Hendrickson? That's my question. So the way it happens is the contract negotiations between the Bengals and Hendrickson continue to not go anywhere this offseason. Now, I do think that the Bengals, and by the way, Trey, wants to go back there. And usually when both sides want to get a deal done, they find a way to get the deal done. So if I'd have to guess right now, I think Hendrickson does go back to the Bengals at some point. But there's been some contention between these two sides, and if things get worse and not better as the further along the offseason goes and the Commanders could still use a number one edge rusher, they could swoop in. So that is something to keep your eye on here, but it certainly seems like if it happens, it's going to be closer to the start of the season, and it's not going to be happening anytime soon. So I would, if I'm the Commanders, I'm probably looking at other avenues to address the edge rusher position. Then we got one from John Masood. Says Jack, Cassie, and Joey, but today it's Coop. So shout out to producer Coop. There it is. He brings in Coop once again. John Masood with another 10. Appreciate you, John. You're a real one. Multiple-time MVP of the raffles here on the channel as well. Absolute legend, John Masood. Give it up for John in the comments, by the way. Got one from Jeremy. Thanks for the question, Jeremy. He says, what do you think about wide receiver Ja'Cory Brooks? Think he will make the 53-man roster? I like him. Listen, man, everyone here at Chat Sports knows how much of an affinity I have for Louisville quarterback Tyler Shuck, now Saints quarterback Tyler Shuck. And I watched a lot of his film this year. I watched every single snap that he had at Louisville this past year. The one receiver that was anywhere near good was Ja'Cory Brooks. All right, he made some awesome catches. I don't know if he's necessarily like a separator type of guy, but he made some awesome catches in contested situations last year. He was the only guy that would kind of bail Tyler Shuck out of poor throws at times. So I think that he's a very intriguing UDFA that they brought in. Does he make the final 53-man roster? I mean, as a UDFA, it's going to be an uphill battle, but I do think that there are opportunities in this wide receiver room from the Washington Commanders where he could sneak his way in if he has a good offseason program. He's got some good size. He's got long arms. He's a former Alabama recruit. So he is certainly somebody that you got to keep your eye on during the offseason program for sure. Then we got one from Gregory. What's up, Greg? This is for all the hype with Daniels now. And someone recently ranked him number one QB in the league. Do you think win total over or under 9.5 is too low? Good show, Jack. Like always. Yeah, it's too low. I think that, this is a team that obviously went to the NFC Championship game just last year, and they've gotten better this offseason. And Jaden Daniels, it's a reasonable expectation that he's way more comfortable in the offense this year than he was last year. It's tough being a rookie in the National Football League, guys. And Jaden just showed ultimate poise out there on the biggest of stages, arguably played his best in the playoffs on the first two playoff games that this team played and won. So, yeah, I think that the over-under for wins for the Commanders is too low. I think it should probably be around 10.5 0.5. I think, just add a game on there, and that should be pretty good. But even then, I would probably take the over for the wins this year. So give me the over-under right now. 9.5 wins for the Commanders in 2025. Do you think they get over or under that mark this year? Give me an O if you think over, or type U if you think under. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by giving me an O or a U. Going from Oscar here, says, can Lattimore and Amos contain Lamb and Pickens? So what's interesting about Lamb is that he plays mostly in the slot, okay? He's a slot merchant. And because of that, you got to have a good nickel corner and a good slot corner. This is why you draft a guy like Mike Samerstroll as early as you did, because they drafted him to be a slot corner. And, having him being able to line up against CeeDee Lamb, even though he's not as big as CD, he's certainly somebody that can compete with him in the slot, and that allows Lattimore and Amos to do their thing outside. I certainly think Lattimore is capable of handling George Pickens. Now, Pickens can make crazy catches. Sometimes great offense is just going to beat great defense every time. But Lattimore has the type of physicality and experience to be able to go up against a guy like George Pickens, absolutely. And in a pinch, I think Amos could certainly do that as well. So actually, I think Mike Samerstroll, Oscar, is going to be somebody that's a big contributor to containing CeeDee Lamb because of how much he plays in the slot. Then we get into here our Fanatics read for the day. And if you guys want a Jaden Daniels jersey for yourself here, you can get one today. All right. What are you waiting for? If you haven't gotten a Jaden Daniels jersey yet, guys, he's absolutely awesome. He's going to be the quarterback for this team for a very long time, and he's going to end up being a Commander's legend. All right. I have a good feeling, cross our fingers here that, the next quarterback that's going to be raising a Lombardi trophy over his head for this football team, it's going to be Jaden Daniels. So if you guys want to get his jersey today, you can go chatsports.com/Daniels. Really do appreciate your guys' support. Of course, if you use our link, chatsports.com/Daniels, and you make a purchase, Fanatics sends us part of the proceeds. So if you want to help us out and you want to help yourself out here, get yourself that Jaden Daniels jersey in your closet finally here. Go chatsports.com/Daniels and make it happen. Got one from my man Evan Underwood. Says, can we sign Zadarius Smith and Jadeveon Clowney or Von Miller? I see them all going close to vet minimum. Why not grab them all? Gotta grab them all. Yeah. You look at all the edge rushers that are out there, and, Jadeveon Clowney gets added to this list, along with Zadarius Smith, Von Miller, Matthew Judon. The reason why they wouldn't probably get multiple guys is because they like some of the guys they have here. The thing about Dorrance Armstrong and Cleveland Ferrell, those guys in particular, and they actually brought back Cleveland Ferrell this year, is that they're big bodies and they're really good at setting the edge in the run game, all right? Like, they are really, really good at that, and that's very valuable on early downs, is being really solid run defenders, all right? And then the way that they like to attack opposing teams in terms of a pass rush is they like to blow guys up in terms of like the stunts and the games and the loops and all these different stuff that they like to do on this defensive line. Some defenses rely on their edge rushers and their interior guys to win one-on-one. Other defenses, like the Commanders, like to, do a bunch of different stunts in games to get to pretty much scheme people open. So, I think that they like Dorrance Armstrong. They obviously like Dietrich Wise enough to get him in free agency. They got Jacob Martin, who's more of a designated pass rusher type, and they still got Cleveland Ferrell for early down work as well. So, would I hate it if they grab multiple edge rushers on the open market? No. But I think that if they do bring one in, it's probably just going to be one. Then we can bring in a Moby here. I hope I'm saying that right. Moby says, how likely is Jaden Daniels to pass for 4,500 plus yards this upcoming season, presuming he doesn't get hurt? Listen, man, I'm not going to put it past Jaden to do anything this year. All right, he might break some crazy records for total yardage this year if he can take the proper step forward from where he was in his rookie season, and he was already arguably the greatest rookie quarterback in the history of the National Football League. So if he takes another step forward, we're talking about bona fide top 5 quarterback in the National Football League, and he might already be there, honestly, but, he'd be bona fide in that spot, and then, he might even be in the conversation for league MVP. So, I'm excited to see what he's going to do this year. The total yardage numbers and the total touchdown numbers I expect to be absolutely astronomical, and it's because of him that I'm expecting this team to compete for an NFC East division crown, even with as competitive as this division is going to be next year. Then we got one from Eli. He says, if the Commanders trade for Von Miller it would be radical. So they wouldn't have to trade for him. They just have to sign him. He's a free agent right now, Eli. So they can sign him right now if they want, and they don't even have to give up any trade capital or draft capital to go get him. So absolutely, I would be happy with Von Miller. He's definitely getting up there in age, but if you're looking for somebody to replace Dante Fowler Jr. as this team's designated pass rusher, Miller can still get that job done. Absolutely. So before we get to the rest of the questions here, make sure you click that thumbs up icon if you're enjoying yourself today, if you are a loyal member of this fan base and a loyal member of our family here at the Commanders Report. The real ones know clicking that thumbs up icon takes a half second of your time, and it is the easiest way to help out our channel. So thank you guys so much for clicking that thumbs up icon today. And with that, let's get into the rest of the questions. Starting with Keith, says, why spend more draft capital and go backwards? Why not move forward with what we got? I mean, because you could, obviously it depends on what player you're getting, Keith, but like, you're as a team, you'd be moving forward if you get a number one edge rusher like Trey Hendrickson, right? So even though you're giving up a little bit of draft capital to go get a guy like that, my proposed trade idea here, guys, would not affect the amount of picks that the Commanders have in 2026. It would just downgrade the pick that you have. What I mean by that is you trade and you swap your first-round pick for the Bengals' second-round pick, and then maybe you add on like a fourth-round pick in 2027 or something like that. But the value of a true number one edge rusher like Trey Hendrickson in this defense would be astronomical. It really would. It would allow the Commanders to play more one-on-one type of pass rushing type of style of defense instead of having to rely on stunts and games and all this different stuff that the Commanders like to do. Not to mention Hendrickson can absolutely blow some people up on some stunts. But, I think that you actually move forwards as a team if you are trading for a guy like Trey Hendrickson and not backwards. That's my perspective. Then you get G. Tuck, says, report by Chat Sports. What do you see as the plan post-Mariota to back up Daniels? I mean, who knows, man? I think it's a year-to-year thing. You could look at maybe Cooper Rush next year. But I think that they want to keep Mariota as long as they can keep him as the backup, all right? Like, Mariota showed last year that he is awesome in this offense, all right? Like, once he started using the same VR technology that Jaden Daniels has been using with this team, like, Mariota looked like a completely different quarterback when he played for this team last year. He's one of the most reliable and one of the most competent backup quarterbacks in the National Football League. I even thought, based on his performance last year, that a team like the Raiders might think about picking him up as a kind of bridge starter, but they end up, of course, getting Geno Smith. But good for us, Mariota's back in the fold, and if, God forbid, Jaden Daniels goes down, Mariota showed last year that the season's not over with Mariota at quarterback. He is a good operator of this offense. So as long as he's available to be here and he's not somewhere else, I want him here in Washington. So that'll be it for today's edition of the Commanders Report Mailbag by Chat Sports. Thank you guys so much for stopping by today. I will see you guys next time. And until then, hail to the Commanders. All right, man. So thanks for all the questions. Good questions this week, as always, guys. Want to give a big shout out to producer Coop, even though he's a Cowboys fan, for stepping in today with Joey. Busy doing some other stuff here at Chat Sports today. So, Coop, we appreciate you.
Always.
And we still got over 230 people watching. Great audience today. You guys have been awesome. We're going to be back next week with more Commanders live coverage, probably on our normal day on Wednesday. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And Coop, before we go, answer the over-under question here. Do you think they get over or under 9.5 wins?
I'll take over. I think they'll go 10-7 or 11-6.
And you think the Cowboys have more?
Yep. Cowboys will go 12.
So what do you think the division rank standings are at the end of next season?
Eagles. Well, actually, there hasn't been a
repeat champion in a long time.
And the Commanders did not win the division last year, correct?
Eagles won the division crown.
Okay. Cowboys. Eagles.
Cowboys with Schottenheimer is
Commanders.
crazy.
All three make the playoffs.
All three make the playoffs. And do the Commanders win a playoff game? Depends on who they play. Okay. I'm going to go Commanders, Eagles, Cowboys, Giants. That's what I'm going to go with this year. It's going to be a close race. There's some good teams in this division for sure. But, usually I like to take the team with the better quarterback, and, the Commanders don't lose many of those matchups. So I'm going to go with the Commanders to win the division this year. Appreciate all of you guys stopping by today. We'll see you guys next time. And until then, hail to the Commanders.